Welcome back to my Mythical Meta, your gaming podcast that's actually a friendship podcast. Just a reminder that this episode is a continuation of last week's recording. I was joined by Benjamin and Derek. Last week we talked about some advanced deck building concepts such as mana and card advantage, and this week we continue that discussion with Quadrant Theory, a theory used for evaluating how good a card is during any particular situation in a game. So welcome back to the show. All right. Do y'all want to get to? I'd say this is the biggest of these concepts that we've planned out today. Quadrant theory.
Yeah, I think this will be mostly a basic overview. There are so many podcasts that cover this, but I think it would not be fair to our audience to talk about, intermediate deck building concepts and not include quadrant theory.
Yeah.
So who is it? Marshall Sutcliffe that kind of
That's
pioneered?
right. This is the article that I found on Wizards' website. He gives credit to some other pro players that he's worked with. He gives a lot of credit to Brian Wong, who is the person that he podcasts with also. And he says he's a world-class limited player, but doesn't enjoy traveling to tournaments. So he's kind of just a big deal in the Pacific Northwest.
Gotcha.
But anyway, Brian Wong, Marshall Sutcliffe, these are two pro Magic players, and they've got a podcast. I mean, this article was published in 2014. Quadrant Theory is not new by any means.
No, and people were talking about it when I started back in 2009.
Yeah. The purpose of Quadrant Theory, or what they claim Quadrant Theory is for, is to evaluate cards. Evaluating whether a card is good or not by determining if it's good in these four board states, in these four general situations in the game. Benjamin, tell us about the opening phase of a game.
Yeah, so the opening or developing phase is when all of the players have just started. They have their opening hands. They can kind of map out the first 3 or so turns, and you don't have anything on the board. No one has played anything yet. No one has drawn very many cards. Life totals are still relatively full. So your goal at that stage is to try to either get to an early lead or develop so that you can get to your game plan happening. So this, is your first turn Soul Ring. This is your, playing your scry land and setting up the top of your deck.
Right.
It's the ramp so you can get to your commander faster. It's the mana dork or the, I'm just going to go ahead and play my Mystic Remora and draw a few cards so I can sculpt my hand for when I want to make a big play later. Right. Whatever it is, the idea is this is the stage where you set up for future turns. And really, the length of this stage is what really defines a deck, right? Aggro decks kind of skip this stage. They say, my first turn, I'm playing Goblin Guide and hitting you for 2, or I'm throwing a lightning bolt at your face. And it kind of takes advantage of the fact that some decks have really long developing stages. But of course, the long developing stages are meant to get to a higher end when they move out of development. So, looking at the cards, I've kind of mentioned a few, right? Mana Ramp is good in this stage, especially. You're going to be looking at low-cost removal, things that can kind of stop someone from hitting you too hard too fast. Or, Travis, this is where Broken Bond is best.
That's right.
Because you still have...
drawing Broken Bond in the late game, because I might not have a land in hand. In the late game, it feels bad if you don't have that land that you can also put onto the battlefield. Yeah. But in the early game, when I've got my opening hand and I know I'm 3 lands or 4 lands in, then I play Broken Bond, put somebody else down, put myself up. That feels great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the opening step, or the opening phase. And this is why you want to make sure you have cards that cost, 1 and 2 mana in your deck.
Yes.
And in this stage, nobody really has dominance or control just yet. Nobody's on the beatdown. Nobody's on the back foot. People are building unless your goal is aggro. So you're burning or you're attacking that early in the game. You've got a 1/1 haste or whatever. Derek, tell us about Parity. Stage 2 is called Parity.
Parity or stalemate is when anyone who's played this game in a meta that is all similar power levels, you're going to get to this point where neither player is able to beat out any of the others. Everyone's just kind of, a standoff with their guns out, pointing at each other, but no one is able to make that first move, because if they make that first move, they've suddenly opened the door for two other people to jump in on them. So everyone is just kind of holding their cards and their creatures and all that stuff to, hopefully they draw something that'll break it. This is when card draw is so important.
Yep.
And, there are other creatures that can help you break it. But yeah, card draw is really when it's going to shine here, because if you're outdrawing your opponents, you're going to find something that'll help you break through the blockade of creatures. I remember the last time we played, I was playing my Elevere deck. Randy had Goshintai. Benjamin had someone. I don't remember what it was, but everyone... So Elevere has to attack to get a aura to buff my creatures. But at that point, we were all at a very similar power level, and swinging Elevere out to get that aura would be certain death for her.
Yeah.
And it would set me back. So I'm sitting there waiting for someone else to, make a misstep and let me in the door.
Yeah.
Parity lasts longer in multiplayer games than it does in 1v1 because of exactly what Derek said. If one person decides to go on the offensive, then they're left open not just to the opposing player, but to two other people too. So the risk far outweighs the potential rewards of swinging on one person. And like Derek said, card draw is especially important here. Removal, so that you can break somebody else's board position, and obviously powerful creatures or powerful spells, so that way you can make your board position even bigger than everybody else's parity.
Yeah.
So we've did the opening phase or the developing phase. We've done parity as the second. So now there's two more. We're talking quadrants. So there's 4 total. The last 2, one of them is winning, where things look really good. You're in a great position. You are on the offensive, you're on the beatdown, and it's likely that you will win in 3 or fewer turns. So that's a great position to be in. And then the last quadrant is the opposite, losing. Things look bad, you are the one being beaten down, you will likely lose in 3 or fewer turns. And when you're losing, you need an answer fast. The clock is ticking, and your time on this earth is limited.
Yeah.
So with those 4 quadrants, we use the quadrants in order to evaluate cards and whether they deserve a slot in our deck. What you want are cards that will perform well in multiple quadrants. You want a card that can do a great job in the opening phase, in parity, in winning, and in losing. You want a card that's good in as many of these phases as possible. If a card is only good in one phase, then it might be worth it.
It better be really good. It better be
really good in that one phase.
Yeah, and Soul Ring is kind of the emblematic example of this. It is basically only good in the opening phase. It's okay in parity. It's terrible winning and losing. That's not the card you want to see.
Yeah.
But it's so good in your opening phase that you're of course going to include it in every deck because it basically you win the opening phase. You're already it moves you from opening to winning when you have it. And so it makes it worth it for that off chance you get it early. It's worth it to include it. But there are some cards where they're not good enough in that one phase where they play to make it worth all those other instances where it'll just be terrible. So I think most 3 mana ramp falls here. Yeah, there are times where
I was literally thinking Manalith.
Yes,
I was like 3 mana for 1 land of any color with no other bonuses or no other effects. I can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, there are many times where on turn 3 you're still in the development phase and you really want to go to 4 mana and you would take a 3 mana rock like Manalith.
Or an obelisk.
Yeah.
An Alara obelisk.
Yeah, but then it's so bad at every other stage. It's bad when you're winning, it's bad when you're losing, it's bad at parity. It's just not worth that card slot because even though it's respectable in many situations in development, it's just never good enough to justify its position at any other time in the game.
Yeah. Like we said, in parity, you're looking for cards that can break the stall. If everybody's even, then you want cards that can push you on top or break down other people's defenses. So card draw is one of those things that's good in parity. See more of your deck, generate more advantage, so that you can find one of these breaks, removal, and powerful creatures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things that can break somebody else's walls or break somebody else's position and improve yours. Those are the things that you're looking for in Parity.
And this is where this can help you decide what kind of cards you want to pick. So card draw is a great example here. Card draw is, if you look at something like Rhystic Study. Rhystic Study is great in the opening phase, right? Rhystic Study says when your opponent casts a spell, they can pay 1. If they don't, you draw a card. In the opening phase, people don't have a lot of extra mana. They desperately need every last bit for the mana efficiency, like we were talking about earlier. And so you're going to draw a bunch of cards, and you were okay taking that turn, that 3 mana, basically that turn off to set up this card draw engine. Rhystic Study is terrible when you're losing. If you draw Rhystic Study on turn 10 when someone else has a bunch of big creatures and you just have, 3 or 4 tokens that can hold them off for a turn, you draw Rhystic Study, it's too late. Rhystic Study is not really great when you're winning because it's not going to help you close out the game. It doesn't do anything the turn you play it, so you're still winning, but it doesn't help you win more, and it doesn't prevent anyone from catching up. Rhystic Study is, I think, really good at Parity. Because it's going to do one of two things. Either it slows your opponents down because they're paying the 1 and allows you to go from Parity to winning, or you're drawing cards, in which case that can often take you from Parity to winning. And I think it's worth including in slower metas because it's good in 2 things. But there are cards that you say, this is good in those situations where Rhystic Study might not be, such as Sign in Blood. Sign in Blood it draws 2 cards. That's all it does. I draw 2 cards, lose 2 life. That's good during developing because you can just, on turn 2, get 2 more cards, and it just helps you develop that much faster. At Parity, it's good because now you go from that 1 card to 2 cards, and it just helps you get a leg up on your opponent. When you're winning, it's fine. It's cheap enough that you can dig for something to close out the game. And when you're losing, it's fine because it's cheap enough that you can dig for an answer. Sign in Blood, it's not a huge effect, but it's good at every stage. And are you likely to draw more cards with a Rhystic Study than a Sign in Blood? Yes. But the price you pay is that Sign in Blood's good at all stages of the game, and Rhystic Study is only good early at opening or Parity. And so you'll want to make sure that you don't skimp out on all the ones that have that all quadrant versatility, and only go for the ones that only help you at the 1 stage, because you will likely find yourself at all of these stages throughout a game at the various points.
Do y'all think Moonshaker Cavalry and Bluster Squall go in this category? I was just like...
Which category?
Parity.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was thinking, the discussion that we're having now has kind of changed. As I was making the outline, I was like, this is a card that's good in Parity. But it might not be a card, Bluster Squall. But it might not be a card that's good in all the quadrants.
I mean, Bluster Squall is good, in my opinion, in 3 quadrants.
It's good in Parity, winning,
and losing.
Because you can overload it on somebody's turn before they attack, I guess.
Yeah. Or, if you're at Parity, it taps down all your opponent's creatures. You might be able to knock someone out.
Yeah.
Moonshaker Cavalry, I would not say is necessarily... I mean, it's hard. Because it costs 8, you're only playing it in the late game.
Yeah.
You're either drawing it when you're winning or you're losing.
And it depends on numbers of creatures.
Yeah.
Moonshaker Cavalry is not very good if you don't have a board state.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would almost say Moonshaker Cavalry is a win more card.
Yeah.
And that's something you'll hear thrown around a lot. A win more card means that it is basically only good in the winning quadrant. So you already have an advantage over your opponents in some way, and you're just looking for a way to close out the game, but your deck is already doing its thing. The theme has been shown off. You're likely to win that game from the current board state. That if a card is only good when you're already doing your thing, that's likely to be what we call a win more card, and you want to replace most win more cards with cards that have versatility. It's okay if they're good in the winning quadrant, but you also want them to be good somewhere else, or else you're more likely to lose when you draw them, because the times that you're in the winning quadrant is going to be few and far
between.
Yeah. And if you are there, you were likely to win even without drawing that win more card. And so it's it doesn't help you when you're losing, and it only helps you a tiny bit when you're winning. so not worth it. But a card like Bluster Squall does both, right? If you're winning, but let's say it's going to take you 3 or 4 turns to whittle down their blockers, and maybe they'll draw out of it by finding a sweeper or something. A Bluster Squall just says, no, I'm going to kill you now. And you just get in. And even if it doesn't help you kill everybody, it can help you kill the second place person, so that it increases your odds of winning. But it's also, like you said, it could be a fog. It's actually even okay. It's not great. But if someone's playing aggro, you can use it, you can use it on turn 2 to stop a Ragavan from drawing a card off the top of your library and
stop
a
Rogue Rack swinging at you with a sword or a Colossus Hammer.
Yeah. So, I mean, if everyone's developing, it's not great. But if you're developing and someone else is going aggro, then it's good there too.
Yeah.
Because it's first mode, it's non-overloaded mode, only costs 1. And so you can use it and still advance your board state. And so I've known about Bluster Squall, but now that I'm actually thinking maybe I put it.
I used it to beat Randy with my Lord of the Nazgul deck last time we played.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of
hey,
it can help you close out a game.
So what are the kind of cards that we want to see in the winning stage? Like we said, we're few and far between, but we're here in the winning stage, not very often. We've said many times, your chance of winning in a good meta is 25%.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do when you're in the winning stage? Obviously you want to win, but what are some cards that would be good to see?
I think you listed some good ones here. Derek, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I think using protection spells when you're winning. For me, I use a lot of big creatures who usually don't have native protection, or my commander or something like that. It's invaluable to the process of winning. So things like Tyvar Stand and Snakeskin Veil, I use those in almost every deck I have.
Yeah.
That cares about a single creature. If I'm in white, I've almost always got Teferi's Protection, which lets me protect my board from like a board wipe or something like that. I don't want to get set back to, the beginning. I keep going. Heroic Invention is just a green version, hexproof and indestructible.
Yeah,
and only 2 mana.
Nothing makes me feel smug like being in a winning board state and drawing Heroic Intervention.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just feels so good to know that you've got it in the bag.
It's over.
Yeah, or Boros Charm.
Yeah. Yeah, Boros Charm is another one.
And Boros Charm may be even better for like a card that's good when you're winning, but also is good in other quadrants because it has that double strike mode.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it can make all your stuff indestructible, which can save you from Wrath of God or whatever. But then it can help you close out a game. Let's say, if I need to get in for 3 turns. Oh, with Boros Charm, I only need to get in this time and give my biggest thing double strike. And
I love to give an opponent's creature double strike.
Yeah.
Just like when they're attacking somebody that's not me, like they think they can take it once, but then you give it double strike and they're out.
Yeah.
Ooh,
it's brutal.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I listed a bunch of cards that can help you protect your one creature because I feel like I always want to protect my commander.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in a winning stage, it's usually because my commander's out, and I just build around my commanders. That's just how I like to express myself. So I did throw in several cards in lots of different colors. Not Dead After All, Feign Death, Supernatural Stamina. These are some black cards that say when this creature dies, bring it back.
Yeah.
All stars in Alinda.
Oh yeah. I added those to my Lord of the Nazgul deck as well. White loves to make things indestructible. Blacksmith's Skill, Loren's Escape are 2 that do that. And there was a whole suite of spells that I didn't list that are a bunch of white spells that give target creature protection from name a color.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of those.
It looks like you don't have any red spells here, so I'm going to list some of my favorite ones.
Yeah, do you know any in red?
Yes, Bolt Bend, Chef's Kiss. Those are the big 2.
Okay.
I have a couple of decks that have... Dang, what's the name of that equipment that searches out instants?
Sunforger.
Sunforger. Okay, I have a bunch of decks with a Sunforger package, and I always include at least Chef's Kiss, Bolt Bend, and Wild Ricochet.
Yeah, Wild Ricochet is just a bit too expensive for me.
Yeah,
it
it doesn't make the cut in most decks, but it makes it into anything with Sunforger, and it makes it into... I have it in my Stang Echo Warrior deck because I really, really need that creature to survive.
Right.
because it's the only one in the deck. And I have it in my Baratil Raised by Giants deck because that deck makes so much mana. And once I have him out, I feel like I'm protected. So it's just all about keeping him out. But yeah, Bolt Bend especially, because Bolt Bend can cost 1 if your creature's big enough. Right. And I think there's Redirect, Fork, several cards like that, which are great when you're ahead, and can also change the tide of a game when you're at parity or losing.
So we've done green, white, black, red. I did find just a few in blue, but the one that I think is best is Mythical Skin. This thing is crazy. 1 blue. Target for an instant, target creature you control gets +0/+1 and gains hexproof, but you can overload it for only 1 more mana.
Yeah.
So it can give all of your creatures hexproof.
That's pretty great.
Seems,
Blue also has every counter spell. So
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I would put negate here and just say until I've added negate and counterspell and swan song.
Yes, that's true.
I'm probably not dipping into Mythical Skin unless I have, for in Orvar it would make sense, right?
Yeah.
Because the whole thing is I'm definitely trying to target my creatures. But
I can't believe I just forgot regular counter spells to just put in this category.
Because counterspell is another one
stuff.
That's great in every. I mean, it's not as great when you're losing, but it's great when you're winning because it protects your board and prevents them from catching up. It's great when you're at parity because you can advance your board and know that you can stop any big plays that they've got. In the developing stage, it's not as good because you don't want to be holding up mana then, but if you're able to play, like, if the board is still developing on turn 4, you can play a 2-mana ramp spell and keep up, or even a 3-mana ramp spell if it comes into play untapped, and then hold up counterspell for their development and then keep yourself ahead and move from development into winning.
I've done it, man. The card is Steel Sabotage.
Yeah.
Steel Sabotage costs 1 blue. Choose one. Counter target artifact spell or return target artifact to its owner's hand. But it feels so good to counter somebody's mana rock for 1 blue.
So that's, for blue, I definitely go counter spells first. They're good in multiple quadrants and can serve as protection spells.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, Mythical Skin. Relationship ended.
Yeah.
Green has so many of these. Sheltering Word, Royal Treatment, Gaia's Gift. Green loves to power up 1 creature and give it hexproof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I usually have a category in my green decks for these, and then usually it only makes it to where I only have 2. Usually it's Tyvar Stand, Snakeskin Veil, and Heroic Intervention are usually the only ones that make it.
Yeah.
Because they are best when you're winning, right? If you're, they're not so great when you're losing, and parity often means very few creatures on board, where you're not trying to protect against a board wipe. Targeted removal doesn't necessarily go so far because they don't have, it's not like 10 creatures against 10 creatures. Parity is often everyone's got 2 creatures or something like that, where if they kill 1 of yours, that doesn't mean they win the game.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, I feel like these sorts of protection spells don't make it as much as I want them to. What I do like, if I'm gonna play a win more card, is I love the next ones we have on our list here. And these are the ones that just help us close out the game, because often this can take you from parity to winning, from losing to parity, or from winning to closing out the game.
Yeah.
The cards I like, Triumph of the Hordes goes into any creature-based green deck that I play, and I almost never draw it.
Yeah,
I know that pain. I do the same thing.
But one of these days, y'all are gonna get it.
Yeah,
because Triumph of the Horde gives all your creatures +1/+1 and trample and infect. So if you're at parity, the +1/+1 gives you a little bit, and you only have to get in 10 damage on this turn to just knock a player out, because that infect deals poison damage, and a player with 10 poison counters loses. And man, it's just it gets around the life gain player. If you've got creatures and they've got, a life gain engine that, a bunch of soul sisters, Triumph of the Hordes closes out that game where it might have taken you, 10 turns to chip away at that life total, even with your giant creatures, because they gain it all back. But Triumph of the Hordes just negates all that. Yeah. So it can take you from parity to winning on that. And then I like Cyclonic Rift because it's good at every stage of the game.
Yeah.
But if you are winning and the only thing stopping you is the combined force of 3 players barely holding you back, Cyclonic Rift is game over.
Yeah,
right? Return everything they have to their hand. You just boom. You'll take out at least one, the most dangerous one, and then proceed to pick the other two off. But it's also good if you're losing. Cyclonic Rift saves your bait.
Puts it back at parity.
Well, maybe
almost
even better
back to developing.
Yeah, but if you had two creatures on board, and everybody else has returned, or if you've got a small engine that's really slow, Cyclonic Rift just puts you to winning because now you've got resources that they have to spend resources just to catch up now. And at parity, it can put again, you can win. But even developing 2 mana to bounce a 3 mana rock, shoot, why not? Right? Like you've just gained some mana efficiency there.
Yeah.
Which gaining mana efficiency like that, if you're new to kind of Magic lingo, is often called tempo, right? Where if you spend 2 mana to take out someone's 3 or 4 mana play, they can replay it. It's technically card disadvantage, but oftentimes you've gotten ahead on mana efficiency in such a way that you can get around the card disadvantage on that. So anyways,
tempo is something that I'm learning about, like literally right now. Not literally in this conversation, but in the past in the past 2 months. I've been experimenting more with tempo.
Yeah.
And trying to undo my opponent's last turn for very, very cheap for me to get higher up on that mana efficiency, like you just said.
Yeah. I don't know where the point is where mana efficiency is better than card advantage, because normally card advantage is king, and especially in pro wrestling metas like ours where no one's winning fast, even if we're making big flashy plays. We're capable of winning fast.
Right.
But we're often not, because if we take a steel chair to somebody, someone else is going to throw us over a table. Right?
Yeah.
So
the tag team is going to happen.
Yeah. So we're playing the long game, and in playing the long game, card advantage way outweighs mana efficiency. But in situations where you can close out the game in a few turns, tempo can get you there. The mana efficiency can get you there. So I don't know where the line crosses from one being better to the other. I haven't mastered that yet, but I do know I'm pretty good at it in one-on-one. Commander, I just don't understand the tempo plays quite as well.
Yeah. So that quadrant when you're losing, the best type of cards to look for your losing, for if you're in a losing position, is board wipes. Yeah. You want board wipes or sweepers or some other kind of defensive cards, because you want to be able to switch the board either to parity, where everybody's back to being equal, or better. And like we said, Cyclonic Rift is a card that can do that, but a board wipe that just flat says destroy all creatures, well, that's going to set you back to parity, where everybody at the table has gone back to an even playing field.
Yeah. And in this quadrant, I really like the cards where you can break parity, because they can take you from losing to winning. So I'm thinking of either really cheap sweepers like Toxic Deluge, where you can wipe the board and still have mana left to play other things. So now suddenly you're the only one with creatures and everyone's catching up to you. Or, we don't play this in our meta very much, but Evacuation, or what's the one that returns all of them? Every permanent.
Blue, right?
Every permanent?
Yeah.
Lands too?
Yes. Let me find it. Upheaval is a 6 mana spell that says return all permanents to their owner's hand. So it just sets everyone back to turn 1. But
that sounds awful. I would hate it.
I would just scoop. I don't want to play.
And that's why we don't see it in our meta. But here's the thing. If you're able to make a bunch of mana, to float a bunch of mana, because you're doing this on your turn.
Yeah.
You float a bunch of mana. It costs 6. Let's say you have 9 mana at your disposal, or 10 mana at your disposal because it's late game. You tap all 10 of that mana. You play Upheaval. You play a 4-drop. No one can catch up to your 4-drop because it's going to take them 4 turns to get to it. And in the meantime, you're also playing a land and a 1-drop, and a land and a 2-drop, and a land and a 3-drop. Yeah, that's a slow, miserable game, but it takes you from losing to winning real fast. Not real fast. Real slow. But
another one of these that I like is Wash Out. It's 3 and a blue, a sorcery. Return all permanents of the color of your choice to their owner's hand. Yeah. That could be another way to break parity in a way that's uneven. You leave your stuff safe while trying to hit maybe 2 other players' things. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Flood of Tears is a good one. It's more for parity than for losing, but return all. It does Cyclonic Rift thing. Return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. but then it lets you put one. As long as you return 4 to your own hand, it lets you put something back into play. So you get to start with everything with everything in play. So, but I'm just thinking of ways to break Parity, Crush of Tentacles.
Yeah, I just saw that.
I do have it in a deck. Cyclone Summoner, right? If you return all permanents except for giants, wizards, and lands, well, you can build around that. Most other people are not built around that. So you're going to have a huge board state and everyone else is going to have nothing, right? What's the one that destroys all creatures with power X or greater, or what is it? Is it Citywide Bust?
That destroys all creatures with toughness 4 or greater.
Yeah.
Oh, with toughness 4 or greater.
Yeah.
Okay. There's several that are like all creatures with power greater than target creature's power, or all they can only save creatures with total power 4 or greater.
Is that what is that? It's got a little dinosaur eating the remnants of something. This is embarrassing.
Slaughter the Strong.
Slaughter the Strong. That's it.
It's dead on the ground.
Yeah, it's a giant with a bunch of people that pulled it down and are eating this giant, I think. But that's a card I have in Nethroy, right? Where every single creature is power 1 or less. So I'm going to save at least 4 creatures and every single 0 power creature I have. And most people are going to save 1 at the most.
Yeah.
Right? So if you see what your deck is doing, you can take these cards that take you from losing to winning. It's really easy to be losing in Nethroy and have like 4 or 5 1 power creatures against someone, against Derek's board of dinosaurs.
Right.
Right? But Slaughter the Strong is going to leave me with a board state, and those they may be weak creatures, but they're doing something for me, right? So there's a reason they're in the deck. So
yeah, because you've built around them to do stuff.
Yeah. So now my board state's intact. I've got an engine going or whatever, and I have taken the people who were threatening to kill me and put them all in the graveyard. So look for cards as you're building your deck that can take you from losing to winning or from parity to winning, because those are the ones that are going to increase your win percentages the most.
Yeah.
In my opinion, right? Like that's one of the biggest changes I've made over the last few years, is going from generic sweepers to these kinds of sweepers, because at least with these kinds of sweepers, you can close out the game and people aren't like, we're starting over again.
Yeah. So that is a general overview of Quadrant Theory. As you open packs, or if you're drafting, or if you're getting into the game and trying to choose which cards are good or bad, think about how cards perform in each of the 4 quadrants, in each of those 4 general board states. And if a card turns out to be good in 3 of the 4 quadrants, or all 4 quadrants, snap it up. It's probably really good. Magic is probably full of armchair card evaluators who are saying this card's really powerful or this card's really weak, when they're not actually thinking about all 4 quadrants, or they're not considering how a card performs in all the quadrants. For example, people will see these winning cards that help close out the game, and then they say, wow, this card is super strong. This is incredibly busted. I'm thinking of a card like Thousand Year Storm. This is an enchantment. It costs 4 blue and a red. It says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it for each other instant and sorcery spell you've cast before it this turn, and you may choose new targets for the copies. So this is a card that its ceiling is incredibly high. If you have Thousand Year Storm and then you can cast, 3 or 4 1 or 2 drop instants or sorceries, then yeah, you're going to get way more value than the mana you paid for it. But if, Thousand Year Storm is not good in your opening phase, in parity, I don't think it's good because it does nothing when you play it.
Yeah, it costs 6. Although, I think it can break parity. The nice thing about being at parity is you're not necessarily threatened with losing if they get ahead. So this can break parity the turn after you play it, but it does mean taking a turn off. So it's not great at parity.
Yeah.
It's just not going to hurt you, but you're not so sad to see it when you draw it, but it's slow at parity.
Anyway, yeah, it's a slow card that's, I don't know, it feels like it's only good if you're winning.
Yeah.
If you're winning already.
Yeah, if you're losing, no, not great.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Like if I'm already behind and I draw Thousand Year Storm, I'm going to feel really terrible.
Yeah, and if you're in a position where you can play 3 or 4 spells in a turn, there's probably any number of payoffs that are good at other times as well.
Yeah,
that are gonna
exactly.
work better.
Play Talrand for 4.
Yeah, there you go. Talrand is great at all these different stages,
Yeah.
right? I mean, obviously, it's not great in developing because you need to be at 4 and then able to cast spells. But it's great when you're losing because it's going to clog up the board. It's great at parity because you're going to be able to outgrow your opponent's board state. And when you're winning, it can put you over the top.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a great call that if you're thinking about Thousand Year Storm, play Talrand instead.
Yeah. Talrand or Lord of the Nazgul or Murmuring Mystic or any of those things. Or like, what is it? Electric Field? The wall that... Or Gutter Snipe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, even Gutter Snipe can be a quicker turnaround for... I don't know.
Yeah. Gutter Snipe's one of those where it's part of your development. I would say that, you're playing it on turn 3 to kind of set up future turns, and is not great when you're losing. Is fine at parity. So it's one of those. I don't know which I would say is better. I would just say that I probably would choose Gutter Snipe over Thousand Year Storm in that.
If my plan is instants and sorceries.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, let's do some. Let me go back to my teacher strategies. Today we talked about curve or mana curve, arranging your cards by mana cost, so that you can determine when cards can be played. We also talked about card advantage and mana advantage, making sure that you are using as much mana as you can, or using as many resources, mana and cards, as you can throughout the game. And then we talked about Quadrant Theory, these 4 general board states of the game that can help you to evaluate if a card is good throughout the game, or if a card is only good in certain situations. Benjamin, do you still want to talk about the hypergeometric distribution calculator?
I gotta go, guys.
Okay, Derek, Benjamin has given us enough actual advice. I want you to give us some wisdom.
Oh, I have nothing for you today. I don't know.
Okay.
Wisdom, don't adopt a puppy. Get one that's been around a little bit, knows how to pee outside already. It can hold it. 'Cause let me tell you, you're not gonna get any sleep.
Oh, poor bandit. He's getting big, y'all.
Yeah, he's tripled in size, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, from the time you got him.
Yeah.
All right, Benjamin, do you have some short wisdom for us?
Yeah, get good.
That's perfect. Okay, that's perfect. We're doing our part. It's your turn now to get good.
There you go.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. Remember that if you want to contact us, you can send us emails directly at
mymythicalmeta@gmail.com.
Derek, what's our Patreon?
Patreon.com/mymythicalmeta.
Benjamin, if they don't want to be a patron, how can they still get 10% off?
By using promo code META at checkout at eldoradogaming.com.
Thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you, Ben and Derek, for being my great friends. Adios.
Bye.
Goodbye forever.
What?
This episode was sponsored by Eldorado Gaming. Use the promo code META for 10% off your order. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. This episode was edited by me, Travis Konishek, and our intro and outro music is by Tyler Heath of the Oh Hellos.